So now that you know those basics of electricity, and that really was the overall basic of all electrical basics. There's so much more to know. But that right there, even if you just remember the part about the alternating current and the direct current, and remember that the power supply, the design and the purpose of it is to go ahead and take the alternating current in, right? That's how you're plugged into the wall outlet. You take that current in, you then will have that energy stored in the capacitors of the power supply so that when the various devices inside the computer need power and they need it via direct current, the power supply will then distribute that electricity via direct current from those capacitors. All right, so let's take a look here. Here I have a typical power supply, right? This is what they look like. They look like a box. Obviously, they come in different shapes and sizes depending on whether you have a tower computer or more of a mini tower or a desktop or a laptop, or all sorts of different computers are going to have different sized power supplies. But here's what a typical one looks like. It's just a box. And what are some of the components that we typically would see? A fan. Okay, we have power going through, so we want to have an exhaust fan. And this exhaust fan serves a couple of purposes. It does exhaust heat from the power supply itself, but it also helps to keep airflow going through the computer itself. Okay, so it's a way of exhausting heat from the computer. You have a power switch. Not all power supplies have this. Most of them these days do. Sometimes you'll have an actual physical on-off switch. Sometimes you just plug them in and unplug them, and that's the only way you turn them on and off. Speaking of the plug, there's your three-prong power receptacle, your typical power receptacle to plug it into the wall. And then another feature that some power supplies have and some don't is a voltage switch where you can switch between, and actually looking at this picture very closely, I can tell it says 115, not 110, but 115, or 230. So you switch between your 110, 115, or your 220, 230, depending on what type of an outlet you're plugged into. And I will tell you, by the way, when it comes to troubleshooting a power supply in a computer that won't work, if you have one of these switches on it, look to see if it got flipped. Now, I'm going to tell you, this is all you should ever see when it comes to the power supply. This is all a power supply should ever look like to you. I am going to show you the inside of one in just a little bit here, but you should never be inside. This is all you should ever see.